Hey, everybody. Hope you're doing well tonight. I know this is a pretty abrupt start than what you're typically used to. Unfortunately, there's some technical issues, and I'm not going to be able to play us in with any kind of music. So we're just going to have to start cold, as they say, and yeah, get things going as quickly as possible. So with that, I'm going to jump into the chat and see how everybody is doing tonight. We have with us Nerdy Biz Guy, and he's advocating that we preach. Well, we certainly will be preaching tonight, but from which side of the pulpit is yet to be seen. DJ Close, I hear it's a stinker. Are you talking about this stream? Because on that account, you would be right. Yes, the streams are definitely stinkers. Velnet says, I hear good things about Batman 66. That might be an interesting follow up, certainly. James Hayes says, hello, Will Red, Camel, Twitless, and any other panelists, and everyone hiding around the live chat. I hope that you're doing good and feeling well today. We certainly are, James. Thank you very much for your well wishes. We have Amit Reina, who's greeting everybody, and he's apparently eager to see Berserk Guts, but I seriously doubt Berserk Guts is eager to see you, Amit. So you might want to holster some of that enthusiasm. Twitless is here. He says, hey, yo. And oh, of course, Jack Stafford says, ahoy ninjas, ahoy back, Jack, and thanks so much for being here. Well, with that, I think I'll bring on tonight's panelists. We have a special guest with us on for the first time doing a review. So should be interesting. And yeah, we're all going to have a good time. So please welcome Twitless.
Yo.
And Cameloon. Number one Batman fan.
Welcome to my Batman show.
Yeah, welcome to your show. Mm-hmm. You've now co-opted the stream.
Someone's got it. It's fine.
Checkpoint misses Berserk Guts. Do you know who Berserk Guts is, Camel?
Oh yeah, I know. When I was on Oz's show, like a year ago, he came on.
AIDS.
That was something.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a memorable time for everybody. Berserk Guts on the Oz show. So
someone told me the other night, I don't know whose show was I on my own show? I don't remember. And they were like, we still talk about and joke about the time you were on Oz's show, Camel. I was like, I didn't realize it was a classic. Like, cool, I guess.
Was that your first stream appearance?
And last for that show. I like Oz. Oz was nice, but the show was just, I was like a gong show. I was like, all right, I can't. I don't know what's going on here.
It's a gong show without the gong in many places.
Yeah. It's just the contestants, and I somehow wandered in off the street.
Yeah. I mean, that's where I made my first stream appearance as well.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it was on the Liam show, and then it migrated over to the Oz show, and then Twitless was a regular. So we're all quite familiar with the Oz format. Thankfully, this isn't the Oz show. This is
Does he still
a review
do a show?
Kind of,
yeah.
I mean, he does weird pigeon porn where it's like he shows videos of his birds breeding.
He moved on to just doing comic book reviews at some point, but then he hasn't posted in a while.
Yeah. Well, anyway, for us tonight, though, we're going to be talking about something maybe more interesting than Oz, but it's debatable. It's Batman 89 from DC Comics. So I'll bring up my screen share and people can check out a little art while we talk. So we're going to be talking about the first 3 issues tonight. Would either of you like to give us a little background? What is the concept behind Batman 89?
Oh boy.
Why don't you take this one, Twitless? I mean, I know it, but I'm going to be talking all night, so I'll let you. I'll let you preamble here.
Well, since you've got the Batman hat, I'm going to assume you're better at the Batman lore. So you can fill in all the gaps I miss.
Okay.
So I think the pitch behind this book is basically hey kids, do you remember Batman 89? And by hey kids, I mean, hey 30 to 40-year-old men. Do you remember Batman 89 when you were a kid? And you'd like to basically see that again, or a sequel to it. And this is a comic book rendition of that, a sequel in a sense, to the Batman 89 film. And it specifically is going to focus so far, because we're only halfway through, right? 3 issues out of 6, but specifically focusing on the Harvey Dent character played by is it Billy Williams? Billy Dean Williams, yeah. Who only played Harvey Dent in the first Batman film of that series, and he kind of left after that. And then we got Tommy Lee Jones later on. This comic book series kind of pretends that only the first 2 of the Tim Burton films exist, and that the other 2 films do not. So it kind of just picks things up an indeterminate amount of time after Batman 89, and that gets into some more confusing nonsense. But that's the basic pitch. It's kind of a nostalgia trip.
Yeah, there's also, I mean, so I'll pick up where you missed it, or didn't get everything in there. It is what Batman Forever was initially. It still has a Robin, has the origin of Robin. Originally, when they were going to have a Robin, it was supposed to be, I think it was like Damon Wayans or something. So, there's a black kid in here who's supposed to, I guess, be that. There was also talks after Batman Returns of giving Catwoman a solo flick, which eventually they ended up doing with Halle Berry. But originally, that movie was supposed to go to Michelle Pfeiffer. So she makes a quick appearance in here as well. And initially, when they talked with Burton, he was essentially set up to do a trilogy. This was supposed to be the third of the trilogy. However, when Batman Returns came out and was a bit of a stinker, specifically because of McDonald's tie-in merchandise, it became really difficult to sell the idea of him doing the third movie. Tim Burton did produce Batman Forever, but by the time it went into production and they had Joel Schumacher direct it, he decided he wanted new everything. He wanted, Michael Keaton said he was going to do the movie, decided that because Burton wasn't attached that he wasn't going to do it. So it became sort of a soft sequel. And because of that, they swapped out who Harvey Dent was. And the movie, although in broad strokes is similar to the story here, for the most part, it is sort of a reimagining in the absolute worst way imaginable. So that's a little bit more lore for you.
And what's the continuity here? Is it because it's the same scriptwriter, or
I'm glad you asked. Are you prepared to take a little bit of a side journey and a bit of a tangent into the dark underbelly of Hollywood? Because we need to talk about the quote end quote screenwriter and the writer of this book. Because kind of like Bob Kane screwed over Bill Finger, there's some lies and some deception that are kind of going on behind the scene. And I can't say for certain. There's a lot of stuff that we don't know. But if you take a look at some of the background material behind Sam Hamm, who is the writer here, I think he gets a lot more credit than he should. And he's basically kind of banking on that to get further gigs. And I'm not saying he has no talent as a writer, but I've got some stuff to pull up. Give me a second.
Well, Sam Hamm wrote the first one.
Well, but he didn't though. He wrote the first treatment that eventually became that script. But because of a writer's strike, it was revised by 3 people. And so he even has to admit, even when he talks about it later, when he does Batman Blind Justice, he says what the script that eventually became that film. And so that phrasing is really kind of ambiguous about how much of what he wrote we are actually seeing on screen, because he's not the actual final writer for it. He's like the story person. He's credited with story. Yeah. He's not the actual scripter.
Well, the other thing too that I remember vaguely from an interview with him is, I guess he was dead set against the idea of Joker being the killer of Batman's parents. and that ended up working its way into the final script. But that was way after he was gone from it. That was done specifically just to tie in the movie and have an arc in place. But that's something that works in film better than it does in a book or in a comic book. So for better or worse, yeah, that major plot point was not created by him. But now he's doing this comic here.
Well, I hate to. It gets worse though, because
Okay.
he, for Batman 2, he actually had less to do with it. His script has almost nothing to do with the finished product, and it was heavily redrafted again. Apparently, Burton disliked it so much he handed it off to someone else. But then that person kind of was booted off the project. A third writer is actually the person who was the scripter on set. Now, here's where things get dirty and kind of icky. Sam Hamm's attorney, which is code for Sam Hamm, basically pulled some strings and got himself like forcibly added to the credits. And due to a Screenwriters Guild rule that only allows for like 2 writers to be listed on a film at the time, the actual writer of Batman Returns was booted from the film he worked on. From having credit. He did all the work and he was stricken from the credits. It's a guy by the name of Wesley Strick. So Wesley Strick did actually all the work, but Hamm basically pulled a Bob Kane and got Strick erased from the credits of that film. So again, the thing that kind of is just really icky to me is that Sam Hamm he got the Blind Justice gig earlier on because people really loved the Batman film and they were giving him a lot of, I think, credit for it. I don't know how much of that is deserved. When it comes to Batman Returns, he deserves like almost none of the credit, but he actually kicked the actual main writer who was doing all the work off the credits. So going into this book now, I really have some negative feelings towards this author.
Yeah. So how do we? So I guess, well, Red, you ask us questions. Now, are we going to go issue by issue, or are we going to go point by point, like story, art, etc.?
Well, issue by issue, at least.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be overly detailed. We don't need to do a full breakdown, but I mean, whatever you think is pertinent and interesting.
It's all worth getting into. I just want to know the order. I need to vomit.
Yeah.
But I feel like the review's already loaded. I mean, both of you seem to have a real hate boner for this guy.
Well, I don't care so much about Sam Hamm or his connection. I mean, all that's minutia. But realistically, like if you want to get down to the nuts and bolts, like we got to talk about the book itself, right? We got to talk about the story. We got to talk about the art, the lack of art, the lack of story. I'll say, so starting this thing, the book already starts at like the art is got to be a solid B, and I'm not being generous. As I'm reading this, I love Batman 89. Batman 89 and Ghostbusters 2 are my 2 favorite movies of all time. So, and they came out a week apart. So maybe it was just they both hit me at the right time. I was 7 years old. So, this was like legit fucking primetime shit for me.
Wait a minute, Ghostbusters 2?
Yeah, I like Ghostbusters 2. I like the Bobby Brown song.
Oh, was it the Statue of Liberty thing?
Yeah.
Got you right in the feels.
It did. Well, I was even 6. Yeah, so like when you're 6 years old, like there's no amount. You're like, I'm sorry, that's just you got a little kid, right? So that's just forever going to be my favorite movie.
I mean, Fraggles are nostalgia for some people. I mean, like I guess it's,
exactly. Yeah, you don't know. I
right.
knew a girl growing up whose favorite movie was Addams Family Values.
Man,
really? So you don't
refund on her childhood.
I know, but anyway, so when it comes to this, it's like you're giving it a lot of leeway, and I felt like I'm going to give this, this. You want to do member berries? All right, I guess if you have to do it, like I'll sit through it. It doesn't do that so much, but it's just really boring. And the art is very okay. What's but it's very okay, and if it's gonna get better, but it doesn't. I would say by at least the third issue, maybe midway through the third issue, it's in the fucking toilet. They're not rendering anything anymore. There's no cross hatching. The colors are just paint buckets. I mean, it's actually amazing. I mean, there's no perspective. I mean, they all look like what do you call them? Layouts, like a commercial, storyboards, and like it's hard to sit through it and feel like I paid money for a finished book, because you got to figure too, with the amount of bullshit that DC Comics is currently going through. This entire, Batman 89, this was the use only in case of emergency, right? Like this is the holy grail of story and IPs that we have. Let's only do this if we absolutely have to. And we've already seen that happen a couple times in the last 10 years, right? So another sequel to The Dark Knight. We saw, Watchmen get pulled out so that it's more than just a 12-issue series. Like they've done sequels to Kingdom Come. They've done stupid shit to try to gain capital.
Oh yeah,
and
they
this
value
was
their
like
property
the
so much.
last holy grail that should not have been touched. And so they did it, and you're like, well, okay, maybe it's okay if they get legit artists on it, if they get legit writers on it, if they actually try to make this thing more and add to the lore. But they don't do anything like that. I mean, it literally is a complete cash grab. And this is coming from the guy who will defend this thing if he had to. And there's nothing to defend here. Twitless, what do you think?
I'm glad you're talking about the art, because I was paying a little more attention to the writing. There was something artwork wise. I will that kind of I couldn't put my finger on it exactly, but something that I felt like that was missing. I went back and watched some clips of the films, the Tim Burton films, and is it Quinone? Is the Quinone the artist? Who's the artist again?
Oh yeah, I know you're talking about. Yeah.
So the artist is not a bad art. He's not a bad artist, but if you're going to capture Batman 89, you need to capture, I would think, 2 or 3 things. The Batman batsuit, which we have. So that's kind of like one of the few points. Although they kind of screw up the eyes. They just give him the blank white eyes, not the kind of just normal human eyes that he's got. So there's this weird blending of comic book and film thing going on there. The Batmobile shows up, the classic Batmobile from those films. But the final thing that I think is, and this is the part that I think is missing, is the personality of Gotham City. When you go and you watch those films, those locations came straight out of Tim Burton's imagination, and each set piece it was a very set piecey movie, and each one of them had that strong Gothic, dark, but extremely filled with personality. And I feel like there's elements of that personality here, but there's something of the magic that's being, see, look there. It just looks like kind of like a plain old city. And I'm like, I just don't see Tim Burton's vision of Gotham City in this book nearly as much as it should be. And I think it's missing a leg that you really need if you're trying to capture this spirit.
One thing that happens later on too, in multiple issues, but definitely in the third issue, is they start redrawing screen grabs from Batman Returns, which is just a huge no-no. And so some of the backdrops are the same city shots from Batman Returns. There's no original concept for anything, like you were saying, about the city being its own character. And it just feels like this sort of generic, if anyone knows, anyone who's drawn comics these days, you can go into essentially a pull library that Studio Clip Pro has, and there's just buildings, and you can put them in any position you want, and you can trace them, and you could add your little kind of flair to it. But that's what all of these buildings feel like. They feel like, there's just some type of 3D wire mesh that they're going over with ink. And it's just like, okay, well, that's, I'm sorry, those are just literally boxes,
To be generous, it's competent enough. It's just that if you're gonna buy a comic that says Batman '89 and you really have that nostalgia boner for the Tim Burton films specifically, there's, like I said, there's a big piece of that missing. And like I said, you notice it as you're reading it. You're like, this doesn't really feel like the city from the films I watched.
Yeah. I think too, in that regard, like, so I'm willing to give some leeway here in the sense that, like, if you go read the movie adaptation comic of Batman or Batman Returns, there's no way on earth it could possibly feel like the movie, because movies, they have a different type of way to tell a story. There's a lot more like scene acting and people like kind of like in a room and that kind of stuff that you don't necessarily have to do in a comic book. And so there's also music, right? There's a score, there's editing involved. It's a different medium.
You can't get the Elfman soundtrack.
Yeah, right. So in this, it's like, would this actually be a good movie? I don't know. I mean, maybe, but it's just because it's going straight to comic form, it doesn't work on any level. And we can get into later about like some of the scripting.
I was gonna say, I think it would be a terrible movie, to be perfectly honest. And
I'd have to see the last three pages, or
that's fair.
Issues rather.
That's fair.
But like, and so like some of the scripting, which is really bizarre, it feels very current, and it feels like
exactly
they're making like they're trying to get woke brownie points, and I'm like, but that doesn't work with the structure of Burton's Gotham. Like, that's not a thing. So I don't know why all of a sudden like this is something that they have to worry about.
This book has cognitive dissonance. It does not know what it wants to be. It calls itself Batman '89 despite being set at least in 1995.
Because there's a PlayStation in a window.
There's a PlayStation in a window, and when you date those things together, and also Bruce has like his hair's turning white, and it's totally not that way in the first two Burton films. He's got like a little bit of graying at the edges. Like, I actually like did some freeze frames and studied just to check that. But he does not have the level of white hair he's got in this book. So there's the implication that some time has passed. So it calls itself Batman '89, but it's clearly set in 1995 or something.
But that's typical, right? I mean, Batman Forever is in 95. If this movie came out 3 years after Batman Returns, it would have been 95. But yeah, sure. You're right. Makes sense to call it 89 if it's going to take place 6 years after the fact.
Right, exactly. I think it's just so it's already got dissonance there, but on top of that, there's like another layer of dissonance. So the first layer is that it's not set in 89 because it can't be. Secondly, this book takes the concept of a film set in the 80s, and 89, it's late 80s, is still technically 80s. And then it basically says, no, we need to have a story that has 2021 political resonance. And that's basically the story that's being told here. And that probably just deflated everybody's nostalgia boner, because that is the meat of this story. It's all basically all the plot, all of the pathos of this story basically surrounds a BLM riot situation.
Yeah. So what it is, and I'll, spoilers, but Harvey Dent is like Jesse Jackson. And he is like advocating for, I guess there's like turmoil. Well, this is the best part. The bad side of Gotham is called Burnside. Get it? Because he's going to get burned on a side of his face. And so there are these like, riots going on. And he's there to say like, okay, don't knock shit down. Don't break shit. Like you don't want to give the cops an excuse to kick your ass, which is true. I mean, that's But then there are these guys dressed as Batman who I can't quite tell if the writer is saying that they're supposed to be Antifa or if they're supposed to be like, MAGA people. I don't really know what they are.
They're more like Proud Boys, to be honest.
Oh, okay. Proud Boys.
They're pretty close to Proud Boys. By the way,
the thing is that they're much more like Antifa.
I have to mention this again. I have to bring up Ham. Guess where Ham was born?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Charlottesville, Virginia.
Oh, okay.
So that should be making some things click for some people right there.
Yeah. Yeah. So essentially, these Proud Boy types, again, to me they come off more like Antifa, but they essentially dress up like Batman. And there's even a whole like I don't know, 4 or 5 panels where they're like, it's great to wear a mask. You can be whoever you want to be and you can get away with shit. They like jump cut to these people throwing rocks through like windows and shit. And so essentially they set this place on fire, and then Harvey gets caught in it, and then that's how he loses his face. And it's a little too reminiscent for me of what they do in The Dark Knight. I was just like, I don't know why you wouldn't have tried to go with something that was slightly original.
I'm not wearing hockey pads.
Yeah, so that like there's like the fake Batmen, but they're like, they look like idiots. And they're going around, but like you said, there's a cognitive dissonance because you listen to what they're saying and it's completely antithetical to the way they're acting. So, they're like, we have to save Gotham. Oh, wait, hold on. What's that? Look, there's a fucking PlayStation in the window. Let's knock this place off with a PlayStation, And this is where I think it's crazy, okay? So, I couldn't believe this. So, this movie, this comic almost feels like they were injecting the movie Steel into it. Because it has that, like, 90s urban aesthetic where it's like these are the low-income Black people and how they're dealing with their crime-ridden neighborhood. So this guy who is Drake, they just call him Drake, dresses in what I think is the worst fucking costume I've ever seen. And oh my God, it's so fucking, it misses the point so much. They think he's robbing the place. And so they say, hey, he's robbing the place. So the other people overhear him and think, oh, that must be Robin. And he gets his name because they think he's a Black guy who's looting. I mean, if that isn't completely the most racist thing I've ever heard, and this is like in their book. I mean, it's astounding that like someone was like, yeah, that sounds woke. And I mean, like I've talked about this on my show, but it's just like, I swear to God, being woke is just a license to be openly racist because that's all this book feels like. It's kind of amazing that some editor approved that.
I'm actually feeling bad for this book. Like that was a brutal beatdown you guys just served up. Did that all happen?
Yeah, there's
did that all
more.
happen in the Did that all happen in the first issue?
I think issue 2 is where
that's by the third. It's a steep decline. Yeah.
Man,
Cass is right. Batman and Robin, Robbin. That's actually how they spell it in the comic.
I have to find the part where he goes, "I have birds." That line was perfect.
It feels like,
I mean, it's like an SNL joke. It's like, what?
Yeah, I found it. Okay, give me a second.
It feels like Batman '89 cheated on you guys, and you're jilted lovers at this point.
Oh, this comic was. This is like the worst comic I've ever read.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I'm angry about it. Like truly angry because it could have been amazing. I was talking so much hype for this for a year since I heard it was announced. I was like, this is gonna be it, man. This is gonna fucking save DC Comics. I'm gonna blow my fucking brains out.
But there's Robin on the far right, and they're doing the race swap thing, and he's like, I was on the roof when the fire broke out, feeding my birds. I keep birds. Get it? Because he's Robin.
And the other thing, too, so you can look here. You see in that shot with Bruce Wayne, he's always dressed like Bruce Wayne from the animated series. It's like the one Easter egg. They're like, and every fucking time he's in a suit. It's like the dude wears the same suit 4 days in a row.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Yeah, there are some Easter eggs. But that's basically... The only reason to buy this book is if you have if you're such a collector and consumer that you were going to buy this anyway, regardless of how it's reviewed, because of all of just the references. I saw some people who were just like, "Oh my gosh, Catwoman showed up! I'm so happy!" And it's just the fact that she showed up as looking like Michelle Pfeiffer. It was just people just like gushed about that. And it's like, okay, well, that bar is really low for satisfying you. If you want a satisfying story, this is so far, because we're only 3 issues in, so there is always a possibility the other 3 could somehow just miraculously
turn everything around issue 6.
Yeah, but I don't see it just because the story being told here is about two Gothams, and that's the whole like Two-Face, two Gothams.
Yeah.
That's the idea behind it. And it's the idea that there is a white, rich Gotham and a poor black Gotham, and Harvey Dent is basically kind of both. But they didn't commit too far to the bit, because if they really wanted to do that, they should have had him like, half of his face should have been actually white, do the whole Star Trek thing where he's like, has a white side and a black side. He can wrestle literally with those two racial identities.
Well, let's see, because that's on the covers, right? I mean, he has like a white and black suit. Let's see what happens in the next issue, because he only just turned into Two-Face. The other thing, though, which is kind of hilarious, and again shows this was not written in the 90s, or should have been, or at least thought about being written in the 90s. The whole point of Two-Face realizing like duality is he goes, this is not a joke, guys. He gets visited from another version of himself in another universe. Okay? And that version of Two-Face explains it as quantum mechanics due to the Schrodinger's cat, whatever what do you call it? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Schrodinger's cat that's both alive and dead.
The theory, right? And so because he believes in like the possibility of multiple universes and duality, because there's one universe that gives him what he wants and one universe that gives him what bad choices. He decides then and there in his hospital bed to cut his coin in half and become Two-Face. I mean, it's again like the whole Schrodinger's cat thing didn't reach mainstream consciousness till at least the last 5 years at the earliest. So I don't feel like that makes any fucking sense, being in a book that's supposed to take place 24 years ago. I mean, it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
I'm having trouble tracking like your description. So like you're saying he probably just wrote this script recently. Like this doesn't sound like it draws anything from the original Batman films. I mean,
do you see this picture right here of Batman in the Batman suit?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's the only thing from the original movies. Every so often you get a shot of him in a Batman suit. He doesn't say anything. He jumps off a building. He gets on a building. I actually can't even think. I mean, with 3 issues in, have I even seen him fight as Batman? Maybe once or twice in the first page.
He got his butt kicked by Robin. You got to remember that.
Yeah, but I mean, for the most part, nothing. I mean, it's like he doesn't take out any dudes. It doesn't make any. It's oh god, it's so fucking bad.
This is
the most quantum mechanics.
It is.
Yeah.
To be fair, to give it a little bit of credit, this sequence I liked a little, because it's supposed to be a hallucination. Because the future that he imagines cannot exist, because it's working off false premises. And I sort of like the idea of him, of Harvey Dent realizing that there's like a potential future where things went right for him, and he's in the sucky future. He's in the worst timeline, not in like real, but just like, kind of like when we say it as a meme, we're in the worst timeline or whatever. And he's kind of like got that idea. I will say it got a little trippy there when it got into some of the, I think, the particulars of the quantum mechanics, but it is clear that he is hallucinating.
Yeah, I agree too. As it was literally in the 3 issues, it's the only interesting thing that's happened.
Exactly. Yeah, I was gonna say it's the only interesting thing that happened. So like it was
the only thing is that it doesn't make any fucking sense in a Batman book that was supposed to come out 25 years ago.
That's fair.
It's totally like literally it's like Sam Hamm read something or watched a YouTube video 2 months ago and was like, yeah, quantum physics, fucking put that in there, that's
I mean,
current.
has quantum physics become like a writing trope for writers to sound smarter than they really are when they're crafting these stories?
I 100% think so. I mean, and that's not new, right? Because like you look at back to like especially the stuff that like Fantastic Four was doing, right, in the 70s and 80s. That was like new science that was happening, and so it was really cool that they were incorporating it. But it was of the time and made sense for the book. This is not of the time; it doesn't make any sense in the book. If he wants to talk about quantum physics, then make a book about fucking space pirates and shit. Don't talk about Two-Face. I'm sorry, it doesn't make it. It would have been better if he was like in love with the law. And then he saw that it made more sense to go outside of the law to get shit done. And so he has his own cognitive dissonance, and that's the duality he fights within himself. And so then he's like, okay, I need to like find a way to rationalize this. And so he like out of desperation carves off one of his half of his coin. And then he's like, okay, now, you know, I can kind of deal with it because he has some type of irrational, logical explanation for it. But to like trope it, like to just suggest it's because of a fucking hallucination it's just lazy.
I do have to also have to like to piggyback off the point you just made, Camel, which I thought was pretty good, is the fact that the way that Billy D. Williams portrayed this character probably did not talk in a way that's like, let's talk about quantum mechanics. So, so again, like we have stuff that just doesn't fit. But again, we just get, it's just like references and stuff. So I did not pick this up, but I read some comments that said that Barbara Gordon is clearly cast as Winona Ryder. So they are trying to do some like contemporary things, but it's all just very surface level. And
yeah, well, what you were saying about Billy D. Williams. Yeah, I mean, what's that line he has in the first movie? He's like, we're going to knock down their doors. We're going to bring the law to them. Like, you can't imagine Billy D. Williams being like, it's all about quantum physics.
Yeah. Right.
Like, what are you talking about, man? And I heard the Winona Ryder thing, but I actually suspiciously think that it could be Sean Young. You know, Sean Young was supposed to be Vicky Vale, and she got in a horse accident. And so she couldn't be in the movie. They already shot a scene with her. They had to kick her out. She famously went on, I think it was Oprah, just dressed as Catwoman and didn't get the role. And so I was under the impression that it was Sean Young because I think on the third, like it could be either, but like if you do comparison shots of like whether it's Winona Ryder or Sean Young, they both kind of fill in, the look of that character.
Well, and they have to stay they can't like absolutely reproduce that person probably without permission.
Yeah.
So they probably have to make it a little bit ambiguous, or they could get sued or something.
Yeah. But like, Winona Ryder makes just as much sense. But also, Winona Ryder doesn't look anything like Gordon. Gordon looks very American, and Sean Young looks more like age appropriate to be Gordon's daughter.
Uh-huh.
You know, I mean, Gordon's like 60 years old. He has like a 24-year-old hot. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, that was another thing I wanted to bring up is the fact that they did a pretty good job at capturing Billy D. Williams's likeness, and they did a pretty good job of capturing Batman in the suit's likeness. When Bruce Wayne is walking around, he does not look that much like Michael Keaton, and when they did Gordon, he doesn't look like the actor who plays Gordon, and the actor who plays Alfred looks very. It almost looks like they pulled from the actor who played Alfred in Batman 66, and they gave him a mustache, which from my memory, nothing of he never had a mustache in the Burton or the following films. So I don't know why in this comic they gave Alfred the mustache. So it really feels like they're being very haphazard with even the consistency that people are paying for in capturing this aesthetic.
Do we want to see what
Joan Rivers, not Oprah? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So here's Sean Young as her may have been Catwoman character that never came to be.
I have a message for the director of Batman 2. How dare you not make time to see the Catwoman? Not even so much as granting me a meeting. How very rude of you. After all, I was in the original Batman cast. How dare you not even return the Catwoman's phone calls? I don't make phone calls very often. And after all, business is business. And doing good business means that you return your phone calls. It's a pretty simple formula, Timmy.
So she seems actually to be drawing from some hurt feelings, even though like this is scripted and she's doing a bit. She's trying to do a character here. She seems to be referencing some rejection in terms of the material that she's drawing
So
on.
she tried to get Tim Burton on the phone to play the role, and he never returned her call. So she thought, in her infinite wisdom, let me go on primetime TV and try to call him out, like an early Twitter,
Yeah, I know, right?
comment.
You're not answering my DMs.
Yeah, you totally blocked me after sliding into my DM. Like, what the?
You are ghosting me.
And for some reason, he didn't get back to her. But
Wearing a cape too, like she's not even dressed appropriately for the
she's
character.
fucking nuts. She's a lunatic. That's why no one in Hollywood worked. I mean, she did Blade Runner. That was it.
Wow.
How dare you treat the Catwoman so badly? Have I ever been anything except professional with you? Have I badmouthed you? Did I show up late for rehearsals or something? I even jumped up on a horse I was scared to death of because you asked me to. And when I
What the
Wow.
Yeah,
Her
no,
life
it's
at-
cringe city.
Yeah, I think it's funny though. Like she's got lots of cleavage going on there, and she's really trying to sell. Like, look, I'm desperate for this
It's like
role.
a B cup at best.
Yeah, but it's like the performance. She's trying, right? Like it's
Yeah.
the desperation is just oozing there. So, wow.
So
Interesting
anyway,
bit of
yeah,
lore.
that's would I say read this book? Like, you want to kill yourself? I'll say this. What we were talking about, the art, and like the stuff of Michael Keaton as Batman looks good. It almost feels like the artist spent 3 times as long on those pages than he did on all of the other stuff. And all the other stuff is just like, it's all right, I guess, for a first pass. It doesn't feel like a $5 book. It doesn't feel like a book that, would be, showed off in any type of store or anything like that. I'd be like, oh yeah, this thing. I mean, there are animated issues, right? The animated series that are on this level.
Oh, I would. The animated series is way better.
Yeah, I mean, based on the description, I don't remember the animated series ever reaching these lows.
This looks like a flower. What the hell is up with that cape? It's got like veins in it.
Yeah, it's the veiny.
I do agree with Camel though that basically the only high points of this book artistically are basically these Batman shots. But you'll notice they did the white eyes thing, which again, if you were actually really trying to channel the aesthetic here, you do what they do in the other panels. We actually show his eyes, and they love to do this white eye thingy a lot.
I think that's a nod to the Batman Forever, right? Because at the end he gets the sonar suit, and then in the Dark Knight he actually gets the white eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're like trying to play into the idea that eventually he gets the white eyes, but it's not earned. It doesn't make any sense, and they never explain it. At least in the other 2 movies, they explain why he has it.
Well, I think one of the things that fans of the original movies really lament, though, is that they didn't get to see more of the Billy D. Williams Two-Face character. And outside of talking about quantum mechanics, does he at least feel like Billy D. Williams and how he's written? And do you get a bit of that nostalgia that people were longing for back then?
That's a tough one because he's only on screen, 3 times? So it's like to have a defining character with 3 1-minute scenes is difficult to say, like, oh, they totally nailed that. It's not like Han Solo after a trilogy. So,
yeah,
did they nail it? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, like, I don't particularly read Billy D. Williams and Billy D. Williams' voice when I'm reading the panels. I'm just like, I guess that's okay. I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say like his portrayal of Lando is far more memorable, even with like the character arc that character goes through, even in one movie. So here, the problem again is the cognitive dissonance that this book has, which is it's trying to be 89, but also be 2021 current year BLM protest. And so there's a lot of current day CRT politics, and Billy D. Williams is trying to, kind of like navigate some of that. And so there's a few moments where his kind of Billy D. Williams kind of shines through, and those moments were nice, but then there's a big, rain cloud of like, let's talk about that racism.
Yeah. And I think like Twitless said, it's just kind of like, what is Billy D. Williams' character in Batman. I mean, it's virtually not there. I mean, he's smug. He's like kind of charismatic, I guess, but it's like there's no arc of character. He doesn't even show up at the end of the movie. It's like, so how do you represent that? 30 years later.
Does he ever play anything other than Billy D. Williams? I mean, he could have just as easily been Billy D. Williams from that Colt 45 commercial as he could have been Lando in Batman, Forever, right?
Yeah, I think in the first issue, you feel a little better, right? He has like this sort of like cockeyed, kind of smarmy grin, and you can kind of get like, okay, they're going for it. But by the second two issues, that's all gone. I mean, it's just black man with a mustache.
I mean, all you have to do is picture this guy with half his face scarred, and this performance would probably nail Billy D. Williams as Two-Face.
Two rules to remember if you want to have a good time. Rule number 1, never run out of Colt 45. Rule number 2, never forget rule number 1.
It was like Fight Club.
You want to know why you should keep plenty of Colt 45
exactly.
on hand?
Billy D. Williams Fight Club.
Show up. I don't claim you can have a better time with Colt 45 than without it. But why take chances?
Oh, that was pretty sinister.
Is that Winona Ryder?
Jeez.
Menacing.
You know what's interesting? And maybe, I don't know if it's just the coloring choice, but in the alternate universe, when you see like how things go right for Harvey, they're like, oh, I got married to my wife, and it's a different woman. It's like a black girl. But like in the first couple issues, he's engaged to Winona Ryder. So it's like, it was just kind of a weird, I don't know if that was on purpose or if the colorists didn't know what they were doing, or it was an interesting choice.
That would be a nightmare. Engaged to Winona Ryder.
That'd be fun for like 10 years, right? And then once the shoplifting starts, it's like, all right.
Yeah. What happened to my cufflinks?
All right, so time to talk about the elephant in the room. So
there's more?
Yeah. So Bruce Wayne basically goes through a kind of, I would almost call it a George Zimmerman arc, because he chases down a thug.
Oh yeah.
Who's black. But the black guy's not a violent criminal. He just stole groceries, and the black man gets shot by the police, which leads to the BLM riots, which leads to Bruce feeling like he's guilty for that death. Because of that, he decides to make a huge donation to the black community, which leads to this
white man guilt.
Very, very, very current year conversation. You understand that our problems run deep. Just throwing money around is not a solution. No, ma'am. Systemic problems take generations to fix, which is totally a line that Michael Keaton would have said in 1995.
No, you missed the best part, though. It's when he's like on the floor in the cave sulking, and he's like, no, Alfred.
I'll pull that. Give me a second. I will pull that one up. Give me just a second. He goes, oh, I screwed up. It's in this same issue, I'm pretty sure. Yep, here we go. This is the moment where I kind of just gave up on the book, because it was just like, oh, this is the story we're telling. Whoop-de-doo. This is exactly what I need from a Batman 89 story. Pulled it up there for you. Yeah, I screwed up, Alfred. This time I really well and truly screwed up. Because again, Michael Keaton's character was all about like, and
again, this is a screen grab. This is a pull from Batman Returns.
Yeah.
After he fights Catwoman, he takes off one glove and he sits in the cave and he's got all of his fucking gizmos and shit around him.
Yeah,
that's
it, bat vibrators and all those gizmos.
Yeah, the waffle makers and all that shit.
Yeah. So, KSSS is apparently referencing your show. He says, rule number 3, I'm you from an alternate universe. If you give me a hand job, it might not be gay. After all, I'm you, you're me, and this is a Colt 45. And he says, that would be funny if you watch Camel Knights.
You gotta watch, it's about wormholes. You guys, what do you know about wormholes? That's a deep cut. Yeah, it's a reference to what I think is the greatest Friday night show in Comicscape, but, I'm biased.
That is. Yeah, absolutely. Everybody should be checking out Camel Knights on Camel Moon's channel. It's a great show. Any nostalgia fifis from reading this? Anything at all? Um, is it
I
all
mean,
just
like by nostalgia, like I remember in my 20s, I'd get drunk and I'd vomit and I'd feel vomit in my mouth. And so I feel that nostalgia of vomit in my mouth when I read this. Look, I want it to be great, but you're right. I mean, like I actually like I must have glossed over the white man guilt. See, the problem is that Batman.
Your brain see that means that your brain's working properly. It like threw up a shield and protected you like antibodies.
That's crap. Let's move on. Let's move on. Yeah.
And apparently my brain was just like, no, let the poison sink in.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I'm trying to explain it. Like, Batman is like a James Bond type character in the sense that like he doesn't fuck up. He's like Jack Bauer. Jack Bauer doesn't fuck up. That's why we like him. So when you see something like that, that is the impetus for the entire story, all because he did something that is racist. So it totally kills the whole feel for the movie.
So there's a similar scene. It's when the Ice Princess dies in Batman Returns. And Batman is definitely, I think, shaken up a little bit by it. But within like a few minutes, he's basically moved on because the story has moved on. And her death just kind of like it's sad, but he doesn't spend the rest of the movie brooding over it. Like, I think a minute later, he's kissing Catwoman. So people have died in this universe. It gets, Tim Burton can get pretty dark. And it doesn't all lead to like, current year political protests.
Also, he didn't kill the Ice Princess. It wasn't like, it's like, here, hold this batarang for a second while I turn around and he hit her with his cape and she fell over. Like, Penguin killed her. Like, and it actually is good because it makes Batman a villain. He has to prove his innocence.
Exactly.
It's all well put. It's well constructed, right?
Yeah.
That's not what's happening. He literally just fucks up.
It's almost like Sam Hamm had nothing to do with a lot of the writing of these films.
Yeah.
Wow, I feel like I need a drink after this review.
And this part here, I actually had to reread this because I didn't quite get what was going on because I didn't think it was told very well. And so, again, like the way I read comics, if I don't get it, I actually just move on. And then I hope that like it fills in the conversation later. Mm-hmm. And so they start referencing it like 4 or 5 pages later, but I didn't really understand. I was like, what are you referencing again? So I had to go back and reread it. And I was like, oh, I get it. It's just terribly put together. Like it just, the layout is bad. And I was like, okay, that's why it didn't like mean anything when I saw it because, essentially they try to cram 3 pages into 6 panels. And, it's hard to follow.
So Batman's like not directly like he doesn't shoot the kid, but like he causes the disruption that lets the police officers shoot the kid. And so he blames himself for it. And it's like, yeah, this is exactly why I read Batman. This is why. And this is the part that again, just boggles my mind because I've actually read some of the, I haven't read the Superman 78, but I have read the, Wonder Woman, 77. I've read some of that. I've read some of the Batman 66 comics. So doing these period piece superhero series is definitely a common thing for DC to do. And the Wonder Woman 77 book is fine. It captures a lot of just like the stuff from the original series, especially early on. Batman 66 captures a lot of that original spirit. I don't remember anything that I went, oh, wow, this is totally just like ruining everything.
Well, I think that the problem is, at least with Batman 89, I haven't read the others, but like they found a couple of hired guns, right? A couple of artists who were like, hey, you want to do this Batman book? And they were probably like, sure, whatever, I'll cut my teeth on this. They needed to find someone like myself who would have lived and breathed this for 3 years and would have done nothing, like just been like, a pig in shit making this thing. This does not feel like that. This feels like literally they got like whatever. Hey, what's that editor down the hall? All right, get him in here. Okay, we need a colorist. Well, she's only worked here for 2 days. Whatever, we need someone. And there's a lot of that going on in here where I'm just like, I don't feel like any love is put into this book. And so because of that, it's a 6-issue series. If it's done well, You make hardcovers and you print this thing for 25 years. This thing is not, that's not happening here. Like, I don't, and hopefully, if you do 6 issues and it does well, now you have an ongoing series, right? You can say, all right, you know what? We're going to start fresh in 2022. We're going to have a new Batman. We'll call it Batman 92 or 90, whatever you want to call it. And then you have an ongoing series. But that's not even possible because this thing, by the 3rd issue, is a fucking dumpster fire.
Yeah, it's not great. And there are, again, if you guys, if anyone in the chat is interested in nostalgia trips, there are other much better comics that accomplish that. Like I said, Batman 66, Wonder Woman 74. I think I've heard positive things. I've not read it. Superman 78, is it? So like there are multiple series that apparently are getting some pretty good reviews. This ain't it, Chief.
Daniel Castellan says, what Batman comics would the panel recommend instead of this?
All of them?
Yeah, so this is a 6-issue series. I think it came out probably about 5 years ago. And it was from, was it Kelly Jones? And was it Jones Kelly? I can never remember. And it's called Batman Kings of Fear. That is excellent. That is great because what it is essentially Batman gets doused with fear gas and right away. And he starts to realize that he possibly needs to be Batman more than Gotham needs a Batman. And that his whole identity is wrapped in it. And that possibly he is perpetuating Gotham going down this shithole versus if he didn't do anything and step back, maybe it would correct itself. And it's a really interesting introspective into the psyche of the character. And if you want a good Batman book, I read that in one sitting. It was so good. I would totally recommend that.
If you want something a little older, one that immediately springs to mind that I enjoyed for being like pretty scary, actually, Batman Gotham County Line is a really good mini series. Puts a lot of horror in, and the ending is pretty solid. So there's plenty of good Batman out there.
Yeah. I mean, I referenced this because it was pre-woke era DC, so I don't know recently what has been good or not good. I tried to read that Batman Future State, and I want to again, it was fucking awful. Yeah. Also, I think it is new. The Joker War. That's actually pretty good. The art's phenomenal. The story is, it's fine. But yeah, I would give that a try if you want something a little bit more current.
Okay. Well, did you at least want to tell us what the story beats are? So what happens issue 1, 2, and 3? I guess broad strokes, since it seems like we went into the nitty-gritty details.
Sure.
And what can we expect in issue 4?
So issue 1 is all essentially. It starts out. It's very similar to Batman Forever. It starts out with a heist, like a helicopter heist, and Batman is doing the same shit that he was doing in Batman Forever, where he's like dangling from the helicopter, and then there's a big penny involved, and so he like uses the penny to save himself from like bullet fire. And we cut to Harvey Dent, who's at a fancy dinner with Winona Ryder, and he proposes, I think. And then, news footage and this and that. And, at some point, we get introduced to the guy Drake, who's going to be Robin. And he, Batman, like, tracks him down and he thinks he's a bad kid. And then, like, by issue 2, God, what the fuck happens in issue 2? Issue 2 is just, like, conversation. It's like 22 pages of people talking at each other.
That's something I noticed. There's a lot of dialogue on some of these pages. Like, is it really wordy in some parts unnecessarily?
I don't know if I'd say unnecessarily. There is a lot of just because there's so many of these like social issues that are being tied to Harvey Dent in particular, and they need to establish this entire side of Gotham that doesn't exist in the films. They have to do quite a bit of world building that they wouldn't normally have to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Issue 2 is just God, I fucking read it this afternoon too. I'm just totally blanking on it.
Issue 2 is the I screwed up.
Yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, issue 2 is I screwed up, and then Bruce Wayne is like trying to make deals with like, Black Gotham or whatever.
And that's what it ends with, the cliffhanger of the fire, because Harvey Dent, and this is another halfway decent scene. Harvey Dent goes in to save Robin from the, but not knowing it's Robin, from the fire, and it trips and falls, and then he has a vision basically of him saving the day and having an amazing life, becoming governor, locking away Batman, and then he wakes up basically and he's become Two-Face. So his heroic thing was just a fantasy.
There's also a quick nod in there, and it's like real fast, but like it essentially says that the Schumacher Batmans and the Nolan Batmans are part of his fever dream.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, all the other Batmans are put.
Yeah, all the other Batmans were like working for Michael Keaton Batman, and this is taken from Batman Inc. That was in the 2000s, I guess, 2010s, where Batman was like bankrolling these guys and giving them tech, and they were like, different Batmans in different states and stuff like that. So, and then by issue 3, it's pretty much Two-Face in a hospital bed going through dimensions. And Batman is he's like talking to Robin on the street for way too long. Yeah, I mean that's I think that there's how does it even end?
Issue 3 sets up the idea that Two-Face, basically it sets up Two-Face. Issue 3 is basically him starting the descent into madness. And so the end of it is basically Two-Face, I think, kind of is he flipping the coin, I think, or something? And he's
that's when he decides like, Two-Face is in town or something. Oh,
right.
And then there's like everything with Catwoman so far has been absolutely worthless. I don't know why she's there.
I know
doesn't add anything to the story.
I know why you're right. I know why she's there though. She's there so they can say she's there so that people will buy the book because they slapped her in it. There's no story reason for her to be there, really. It's just they're trying to score the nostalgia points.
But like, here's the thing: you can do both. What if she showed up and she's just like, I have dirt on Harvey Dent, and he's like, I don't want to hear it, because I'm trying to, and then it puts Batman in a conflict, and he's like, all right, he knows the truth is out there, and now he has to kind of, argue with his own logic to make sure that he's doing the right thing. And then, Catwoman is like kind of, twisting the knife a little bit, but he's, then it would give her some type of agency. And there's not even that happening.
She has some like dirt on somebody because there's like, oh, Batman, you're just addressing the street crime. The real powers that control the city are the thing.
That's so vague though. And it takes 3 or 4 pages of her in the book to even say that. It's like, that doesn't mean anything.
I'm not going to fight you on that. Yeah, I guess I'm not going to defend this book much more.
Yeah.
I will say that the major setup for this book is, at the end of it is basically some of the criminals who've committed some, I think, is it white on black crime? They get out on bail. I think it's the Proud Boys who dress up as Batman. Essentially, they get away, and it's and then they're like, "Uh-oh, this is good. Gotham's gonna burn." So the whole premise for the rest of the book seems to be, and then Catwoman alludes to whole like, "Oh, the city's gonna burn. Oh, the fire is fun," or something. So whole setups of the main plot so far seems to be arcing towards. Basically just what we saw, like, was it last year or so with cities burning because of racial protests. And it's like, yeah, that's what I want a Batman book to be about from 89, racial riots that burn down the city.
Imagine too, right? You find out that, so actually you could make a very good argument if you really wanted to, although nobody knows it, that Batman is essentially, what was the cop who kneeled on that guy on George Floyd's neck?
Chauvin?
Yeah. That's kind of who he is. I mean, because he's the one who ignites all of the riots that happen. And so, people don't know that it was him, but, he feels guilty about it. And it's just like, okay, but, it's almost like, like the idea that he like took his power too far. And, he just doesn't get the comeuppance that the cop got because he doesn't go to trial for it.
Okay, so here's the thing. Batman Returns ends with a flock of penguins with rockets strapped to their backs. The end of Batman Returns is basically the Penguin using his army of actual penguins to attack the city. That is what people who love these films were in love with. I'm not judging that one way or another. I'm just saying that that's what people who love those films. And then when you look at Joker and his crazy gang and all the crazy silly stuff he did, these films had a very distinct aesthetic, and that applied to the plot. The plots of these characters were not realistic, they were farcical, and that's part of the entertainment. These are not the villains who are like, oh, I'm going to do some racial systemic violence. They're like, I've got a death ray in space, like James Bond, or in the case of Batman, I've got an army of penguins that are going to murder all the firstborn sons of Gotham or something like that. So the fact that this comic is trying to ape the style of 89 while pushing a current year message and story, again, is extremely... It's hypocritical.
And you could make an argument. When did the LA riots happen? That was 90, 91.
The Rocket Penguins were symbolic of the LA riots.
That's pretty good. No, but look, riots are not new.
No, I know, but they were not really the subject of the Tim Burton Batman films. They were not.
There was nothing about anything in the Tim Burton Batman films that made you feel like, okay, this is a representative of what's happening in the news currently.
Exactly, which is what I'm saying. Like the choice to do that here is extremely out of spirit with what those films were. And the whole point of this series is to capture that spirit. And so what I'm saying is that it clearly isn't. And again, to give credit to Sam Hamm, he wrote Batman Blind Justice, where he did a much better job of capturing the spirit of what he was supposed to do. I don't know what he was thinking when he did this project, because
because I think you're right. Like even Batman Forever, like the denouement ends up with Riddler in a giant crystal tower shooting laser beams. You're like,
right?
Whatever, man. Sending waves into people's brains and sucking their brains out of it. Like it's fucking stupid, And then even Batman and Robin, it's Batman and Robin, freeze the whole city.
Freeze the whole city.
So maybe there'll be something cool. Maybe there'll be something that is interesting where it's like, Two-Face realizes he needs to destroy half of Gotham and sets bombs up everywhere. Like that would be different, at least. It'd be something, but it needs to be grandiose on that level. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if that's, we'll see, I guess. We'll see how it turns out.
The problem with doing it that way is that I don't think he can, because he's in too deep with what he's already chosen to do. If he were to do something comical and farcical like that, or just super heroic, it would detract from the message he's pushing, right? Because these characters are basically, they have current day talking points. So if you have a character who comically places dynamites with sticks around the cities and says, I'm going to flip a coin to destroy the city, it detracts from the legitimacy of the systemic problem.
Well, hold on.
He talked about.
I think he could do it if he puts those sticks of dynamite around the white parts of Gotham. If he's like, we're going to put it in the nice neighborhoods, the rich neighborhoods, the high end, well-to-do neighborhoods, and then we'll destroy that half. Then you might be able to get a sense of some type of social justice or something.
I think you're. I think
am I more clever than?
I was just about to say. I think you're being more clever than what this book is.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right.
You know what? Though? I'll tell you this: in a month or 2 months, I think I want to do the show again. I want to do issues 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, I was going to ask,
Do
are
we
you guys
do
going
we
to
have
keep going with the
to?
series?
Yeah, we gotta do a sequel, man. We gotta wrap it up.
All right.
You're
I
killing me.
feel like this is therapy here. You're just getting things off your chest, and you're gonna go home and be happy and
Speaking of
you know
therapy, guess who also gets name dropped in this comic because Catwoman is attending therapy with Dr. Q.
Oh yeah, you see her on the TV, Doctor that Harley Quinn's in this. You also there's a couple of Easter eggs. There's one quick shot of Prince in like rollerblades. I, and if you didn't think that this book was going to be woke, it's somewhere in the first issue. Harvey Dent says we need to build Gotham back better. I
really,
was like, all right. So you guys are just going right out of the bat or the
yeah.
cage swinging here.
Well, it's pretty blatant then that it's a contemporary work. Like they weren't even trying to make it based in the original time that the movies were set.
Oh no. They screwed the pooch on that.
Yeah, I mean, it was just blatant in your face. Like, no, this is current day Batman '89.
And I think too, it's like, okay, so Comicsgate, right? We have no problem calling it as it is. But you got to figure, like, all of the sycophantic psychopaths who are, in mainstream critics, whatever, they're just going to think it's great, right? No one is going to be able to say anything negative about this. It's going to be like, it's got social justice, it's got member berries, it's got a black guy. Wow, this is the greatest comic book that ever existed. It's almost critic proof in that sense. Although, those things never really last. They never stand the test of time. I mean, when was the last time you heard someone talk about how great Black Panther movie was? I mean, no one cares. It's garbage.
Yeah,
It's even got.
well,
It's
especially
even
since
got.
the Star is dead. But
Well, it didn't help things.
Well, I will say though, this book, this book's got something for everyone, including if you're a furry. It's got a guy kissing a cat.
Ooh.
yeah, that's actually funny. I was just stopping on that scene just now. Oh, you've got it up. Okay, there you go. Yeah.
JV says Camel Moon always sounds like an enraged Muppet. I agree. I'm not. I don't disagree with that. But like one of what are those two Muppets in the booth who's
Statler and
yelling at the
Statler and
the
Waldorf.
yeah. That's fine.
The two best Muppets, though, right? Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
they're
look,
the
they were the only ones who you were telling the truth. The only based Muppets.
they were Comicsgate.
They were. Comics game. Yo, son, get the fuck off the stage.
Yeah, before there was a Comicsgate, and Miss Piggy and Kermit the Frog were totally woke. So there you go. All right, scores. What do you guys think?
Oh, jeez.
How do you do it? Like 1 to 10 or letter grade or?
You do. I mean, you can do whatever you like. One of the other reviewers, he doesn't like to give scores. Usually we talk about crowdfunded books, so the only score people will give is, would you back it again, yes or no? So I guess, would you buy these again? But you can give a numeric score if you want.
Well, oh God, it's like, okay, so years ago, there was, you guys remember the series, the Paranormal Activity? You know the series?
Vaguely, yeah.
Yeah, it's about like, it was like Where's Waldo for ghosts in a movie. Like sat there and
Right.
watched the screen do nothing for 2 hours. And so I felt like by the last movie, it was like, well, this is terrible. I just gotta finish this thing. I feel like if you're just a huge Batman fan, like you just maybe if you really want to read it, but I don't think you'll enjoy reading it. I can't ever suggest anyone read this when there's so much other better shit out there, unless you just have watched Batman over and over 100 times and you just kind of are interested in what might happen. But then even then, you might just be angry. So I'd have to leave it up to you. I could never say like, I can't get my head in other people's minds. But for like a letter grade, I mean, it's fucking crap. I mean, it's like a D. I mean, it's like the art's
D?
crap, the story's dumb.
Generous.
Yeah. It's like there's. I hate to say it, like they always used to say this about Batman movies, but there's too many fucking characters. Catwoman's worthless. Robin is boring. Two-Face is, I mean, he's the only one who has any agency, and he's stupid. Winona Ryder is kind of interesting. Bruce Wayne, like there's too many people. It's 3 issues, and there's like 8 characters.
Okay, so a D from Camel Moon. Twitless?
D plus. It's a D plus.
So
D plus?
this is like the worst thing I've ever read. I am being slightly facetious about that, but I think it's because it takes something nostalgic and ruins it retroactively, or tries to. I think that it really kind of hits in a more sore way. And we're seeing this a lot in pop culture right now, where it's like, hey, do you remember that thing from the 80s? We updated it for modern audiences. And I just want to like scream and plug my ears. And so this comic's basically just the comic book version of that. And it's just like, I hate it. The artwork is passable in some places. Others is just kind of okay and does not capture nearly as much the Tim Burton aesthetic. If you want the Tim Burton aesthetic, just go back and watch the movies again. You're not going to get anything here that you wouldn't get better in the films. So this book really comes across as really pointless. And the people who would buy it would be the people who would buy it no matter how it was reviewed. They're going to buy it because they say, oh, that I remember that thing. And they're going to buy it no matter what. Anyone who's interested in a good story, just go elsewhere. And if you're interested in Sam Hamm's work, like I said, Batman Blind Justice is much better. And but I no, would not back again. Now, I will say the only thing that I will hold out on is the fact that this is issue 3 of 6. So I can't give a full rating yet without having the full miniseries. But just if having read these 3 issues, I'm not interested really in buying 4, 5, and 6 because I can already kind of see where it's going. It's going to have a riot, and then Batman's going to have to probably do some sort of like come together and be better, be butter, message about equal. You could just see those things happening, and it's like, oh boy, that's where we're going. I'm like, pass.
The other thing too is they have Robin injected into this, but Robin is not a character in this. Like he's in it, but like technically it has to be an origin story. But it's worthless as an origin story because he's just Robin. He just shows up. He's Robin. It's kind of like I said, it's like that Steel movie. It's like Shaq is Steel because he has to be.
I suspect.
Yeah,
I suspect because I think it's for a very distinct reason that they've been showing Batman with the really white hair. I really think this is also going to be a passing of the torch narrative a bit with the Robin character. Because they really were portraying Batman as older. He's more out of touch. He has to learn. So I think there's going to be a little bit of maybe some of that going on. Robin's the new generation, and he can bring us together and stuff. And I don't know. I think the next 3 issues may, because the current character that we've got in Two-Face, he's going to be the villain. There's no doubt about it. So we need a hero to replace Harvey Dent's role in the story thus far. I think that's very much going to be Robin. But I think that's what we're going to see in the next 3 issues. I
don't know if I'll be passing the torch. I have a feeling the comics can end with Batman and Robin standing on a roof looking at a bat signal. I mean,
that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be like, you're the new Batman. I mean, if they did that, that'd be the biggest kick in the nuts, but whatever.
I guess I definitely think it'll anticipate an eventual passing of the torch.
No, the reason I don't think that is because low-key they want the option to do this as a mainstream book. So if they want it to be ongoing, they're not going to have new Black Robin with 2 Bs as your Batman for like the next 25 issues. So I think they'll probably try to keep Bruce around.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Well,
but we'll see. I mean, who knows? I didn't think that they were going to make Batman The guy's starting BLM riots. But hey, what the fuck do I know?
You're both better men than I am, willing to stick this series out to the end. I mean, sometimes I guess you got to just bite the pillow and wait for it to be over. What else can you do? So, I do have something uplifting to share of what might have been from the Batman Returns sequel. Here's an image of the costume that they were going to use. So they actually did put that together. I'm sure you both have seen this, or maybe you've seen it, Camel Moon. It sounds like
Oh,
you
yeah, it's been
researched
out for a while.
Yeah.
Although I've heard, interestingly enough, that although it looks like they were going to do gray and black, that this was just prototype phase, and that it was just because they hadn't painted it yet.
So it was going to be
So-
all black.
Yeah, I think there was probably potential it was going to all be black anyway, because they made the Panther suit for Batman Forever, so I don't see why it would have made a difference.
Well, I mean, the key feature here is it doesn't have the Joel Schumacher bat nipples. So,
Again, this
You
is
can
a
be thankful.
prototype, so
oh,
we don't know.
those are yet to come. And then
But-
some of the casting that was announced earlier on. I have a mock-up poster to share for that. Robin Williams as the Riddler, Billy Dee as Two-Face, of course. Marlon Wayans as Robin. I don't know who this is. The love
I
interest.
like how he's
at the bottom.
smiling in that pic. What the fuck is that?
Yeah.
Was that Rene Russo as Poison Ivy? Or...
Yeah, it is Rene Russo. But I
that's
don't think as a
terrible.
character. Yeah. So I don't know.
Ugh,
You could be looking
yuck.
back at this with rose tinted glasses, just because.
But
you like Batman.
well, that's what I think. Though I think, like, let's say they make a Batman 92 or Batman 95, whatever. Yeah, they'll have, Robin Williams as Riddler. They'll have Patrick Stewart as Mr. Freeze. Like, all of the original fan castings, and that'll be its gimmick.
Patrick Stewart is Mr. Freeze.
Yeah, they had at one point it was Julia Roberts who's supposed to play Poison Ivy. I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, what was the final one? It was supposed to be. I couldn't believe this. It was supposed to be Howard Stern as Scarecrow. Because when that movie, when Batman and Robin came out, Private Parts was a big movie. I don't know if it was the year before or around that time. So suddenly Howard Stern was like considered an actor. And so they're like, yeah, let's get him in there as Scarecrow. And then after that, there were talks about maybe getting, God, what's his name? Ian Malcolm. What's his real name? Jeff Goldblum.
John.
Which I think would have been much better.
Yeah, I don't know if Robin Williams as Riddler would have been that much better than Jim Carrey as Riddler. I mean,
Well, that was also another Sean Young thing. He wanted the role, but I don't think he was ever like offered the role. I don't think they had ever had any serious talks about him taking the role, because originally he wanted to be the Joker, and they were like, "No, it's not going to happen." And then he thought he could be the Riddler, and then that wasn't happening. So, and then he killed himself.
because he didn't get the parts, right?
Oh, jeez.
That's what I assume.
I mean, it's a good reason.
Yeah, it's as good as reason as any is, I guess.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
Well, and I mean, the worst case scenario is at least we only ended up with Joel Schumacher as director. I mean, imagine what could have been if this man directed the Batman sequel.
Oh my gosh. Actually, hold on.
Ah,
Because like Kevin Smith have you heard the story where he talks about the script that he wrote for a Superman like Returns film?
Oh, I have that script actually. I read
Okay.
it.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
So like I feel like I don't know what happens to some of these writers as they get older, because like I said, Sam Hamm does have some writing chops. He has displayed them before, but this current story is just trash. And Kevin Smith has written, stuff before that people like, but
there's no Akiva Goldsmith, if you know that name.
I do not.
Anyway, a writer of Batman Returns and a bunch of really other
okay.
big budget movies. But anyway,
but yeah, so like it's just current day Kevin Smith. Oh my gosh, no. Kevin Smith, who wrote that earlier Superman script that seemed to be much more faithful to Superman and stuff. It's like a much younger Kevin Smith might have been able to write. I don't know if direct, but maybe write a much better script. Current day Kevin Smith, I wouldn't let him near like any franchise I cared about.
Yeah. Well, here he's quoted as saying he hiked the Runon for the first time in a month. A maskless passerby told me 2 masks is overkill. I replied, Batman wears a mask. Maskless guy looked at me like I was an idiot. I kind of feel like the story just should end there, right? Like there's no need to follow up.
Yeah, no, right.
Yeah.
RT Bear's story of Kevin Smith pretty much told me everything I need to know about the guy.
Yeah, that
This
was
is an
interesting.
old story too. This is like over a year ago.
It just popped up in my feed today, so I thought since we're talking about Batman, we might as well
But
assuage
there's so
ourselves.
many problems with that story. I mean, Batman wears a mask. What are you, 11? I mean, like, what kind of comeback is that?
Well,
It's just like,
as people very quickly pointed out, Batman wears a mask everywhere except the one part that he's covering. So he's not even
Batman
right about
also
the mask
doesn't
part.
wear a mask while he's jogging in the middle of the day on a mountain.
Fart Man as Scarecrow. I don't know. I mean, Howard Stern is not an actor. He's just got the crazy hair. I mean, why don't you just put Carrot Top in that role? If you just need a hairdo. So.
I always thought too, back in the 90s, that Anthony Hopkins would have been a good Mad Hatter.
I mean, he was old though, even in the 90s, wasn't he?
Yeah. Now, if they would do Mad Hatter, I would pick Dinkler. What's his name?
Peter Dinklage?
Yeah. I think that'd be great. I think that'd be perfect.
Yeah. I don't know. How would the Mad Hatter character translate to a modern day Batman movie? Like he had the hats that would brainwash you, essentially, right? They put chips in them.
Yeah. What if he like somehow got Batman to do his bidding for him? That would be kind of interesting. And so it wouldn't be for Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne would be hunting someone. He'd be hunting Batman because maybe the chip is in the cowl. So he doesn't realize that he's the one doing it because it's only once he puts the cowl on that he becomes his enemy.
And then he keeps doing it over and over.
Yeah,
like he has to wear the cowl.
Like whatever it is. He's just like, this guy's 10 steps ahead. He's doing everything I would do. But he can't figure out the fact that he's chasing himself, and then also you'd have to have some some side story about how Mad Hatter, not as Mad Hatter, but as his real world persona is trying to take over Wayne Tech or something like that. He's gonna buy him out.
I keep ending up at the glory hole every time I put on this cowl, but I just can't stop.
That's just an idea. I'm not saying it's a good idea, but
KSSS says, think the dude who played Cassidy on Preacher would be perfect for the Joker. That could be interesting.
Part of the issue is the fact that a lot of Batman stories and villains work better in a TV show than they would work in film. So there's a lot of characters. I mean, the ones that they invented for Batman 66 when it was a TV show, or the Batman the Animated Series when that was a TV show. I think a lot of Batman's best stories, or a lot of the good ones, are told in a very serialized fashion that you do on television, and and they're much harder to do if you're trying to do a grand, big budget blockbuster film. It's like, we're gonna do a whole big blockbuster film about Calendar Man. It's like, it's not gonna work as well.
They would never do Halloween. That, though. I don't think Calendar Man's ever had more than 2 pages in a book to begin with.
Well, Long Halloween, I think he at least got
he had 4 pages. I mean, he just shows up at the beginning and end of every book. He doesn't do anything,
and he doesn't really portray the Calendar Man character. It's just a guy sitting in a cell, and he's got calendars around him, but he's not running around in the outfit or anything. It's not like
that's what I'm saying.
He
works better.
Calendar Man.
He works better as a villain of the week on the television show. So there's a lot of Batman's, very extensive rogues gallery that works really well in that format, but would not work in big tentpole films.
Also, Calendar Man was just a stand-in for Hannibal Lecter. I mean, this was the guy who knew everything and like Batman had to keep visiting him to get information.
Mhm.
I mean, so that's, again, it's just like, how much of a character is that outside of him being in a cell? The whole point of that character is he's in a cell. So that's what the story dictates.
Well, in Batman the Animated Series, though, I'm pretty sure he got like his own episode at least once, if I'm not mistaken.
Calendar Man?
I'm pretty sure he did. I'll double check.
What, maybe Brave and the Bold, but not. I don't think he's in the mainstream animated series.
Yeah, I don't remember a Calendar Man.
Yeah, I don't.
It might have been Clock King that I'm thinking of.
Yeah, Clock King did.
Yeah. Well, I have another potential casting suggestion for Scarecrow. I mean, it's something that I saw where it's a mock-up of somebody playing a different role, and I don't know. Seeing this makes me think that they'd be the perfect Scarecrow. So let me quickly bring this up. So why not AOC as Scarecrow?
Oh, geez.
That's pretty woke.
Mm.
Hmm.
Oh, geez, that's not AOC. Oh,
Now do you see it?
yeah. It's like it's what it is. It's just the same image flipped. There's no difference
Exactly.
really.
Yeah, it's just showing a different profile, but it was AOC all along. Who knew?
Could you imagine?
I could.
She's totally not going to
Absolutely.
get reelected now, though. It's going to be a real uphill battle.
Why? Because of that one image?
Yeah, that's one reason.
You look vaguely familiar. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, the district that she represents. I mean, I think they'd elect a cat if it claimed that it was communist and wanted to put everybody into bread lines. So.
It would be a catastrophe.
Oh.
That's what I got, everyone. Cat puns.
Yeah, very apropos for the Batman
you.
'89 review. Yeah, bravo. Well, I have a palate cleanser. Do we want to say something anti-woke for once? Because we've been saturated and bombarded with everything woke. This actually was written, shot, produced, and aired, and was pretty surprising as a scene from a piece of mainstream entertainment. Have either of you seen this
I
little
have.
scene before?
Oh,
Yeah.
I did see this.
Oh, you've seen it as well. Okay, well let's go through it and see if the audience enjoys this little cleanser.
Yeah. Blame your lack of ambition on the patriarchy. Do you honestly think that I've had more opportunities in this business simply because I'm a straight white man?
Yes.
Yes, of course I have. It's undeniable.
Wait, really? Kind of thought you.
Shut up.
So it starts off pretty weak, but it builds to a pretty good payoff.
Well, it's funny because
This
when
is
I
where-
first watched this, I was like, "Wait, so it is woke?" Okay.
Yeah. At first, that's the impression.
Shut up. I'm talking. Look, when I started, I was a tester. I found myself one day in an elevator with my boss for 3 floors. I was alone. I pitched him, 17 ideas. I think he maybe liked one of them, but he knew my name. And then eventually, 6 months later, I got promoted.
Well, as a woman, I don't have access to the same kinds of opportunities.
Yeah, no, totally. Women don't have this.
Yeah. So we start off with the standard line. That's the setup, and then leading up into the payoff.
Same opportunities. This is one. This is it. This is the opportunity. This is the one that a woman is in, that you are the woman. This is the opportunity. This is the elevator. Except it's a car, and I'm trapped in it with you, alone, and you're in the driver's seat, the woman. You can pitch some ideas. Go ahead, go.
So one guess on where this might go from here.
Well,
Does she
I've
totally
seen it.
nail
So
it?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe she kicks him out of the car. I don't know. Maybe she crashes the car.
Obviously, she's supposed to smack him in the face at this point, but it actually gets better than that. So
I'm in an elevator?
What do you want, Rachel? What do you want? Helping women is exhausting. This is the longest you've ever shut up.
I'm thinking, okay? You asked me an important question, so I'm thinking, and I have to watch the road.
There is no more road. All right, that's it. I'm getting out.
Wait, just wait for a second. I want a seat at the table.
Okay, great. Which table?
What?
Well, what do you want to do? You want to be a creative director, a lead programmer, a writer, art director? What do you want?
Yes.
Yes, what?
Yes, I want to do the stuff you just said.
It's not a yes or no question.
I know, okay? You're just putting me on the spot. This is hard for me.
I'm giving you exactly what you're always asking for, which is to be heard. But you don't have anything to say because you don't know what you want.
I do know what I want. I don't know what I want.
Well, maybe you should try working a little harder to figure your shit out instead of spending all your time sitting around longing for the days when you could blame all of your problems on straight white guys.
So here's my take on that.
Okay.
Women are not creative people. They're just not.
Oh, hot take.
I don't care. I'm gonna lose subs. Or maybe I'll gain more subs. I'm sure that comment will come out to haunt me when I run for president. But
Right.
they're not. They're not. And this is why you have most of the time women are not comedians. So it's like it doesn't mean that they all aren't, but by and large they are not. It's why many of these industries are run by men because it's men fulfilling the fantasies of what they want to do.
All right. So when you say creative, you mean creative in what way? Because there's like lots of creations that women make. So so how would you like
Entertainment
wise? Okay.
Yeah.
When it comes to writing scripts, making movies, making music,
so you're specifically talking about multimedia because, like I said, there's Harry Potter, for example, is like one of a very long list of many, many books that women write.
Yeah, well, Harry Potter is total trash. It's completely ripped off from King Arthur.
Okay, well,
I'm just going to share this image while we have this discussion, but please continue.
And so you have this collection of women who have now been fed this idea, this ideology that they can go into a business and if they complain enough, they can get to the top. And what happens is when they do complain and they do get to the top, they have absolutely nothing to offer. And so they don't have, here's the thing about creative people, okay? Creative people don't tell you about like something that they want to do in the future. Creative people don't complain that they don't have enough resources to do what they want to do. They are always finding ways to do it. They are a faucet of ideas and they're always working. They might have 10 works in progress. Okay. They're not complaining about the fact that, oh, maybe one day I'll be able to tell this story or make this thing. They're finding ways to do it. That's what creative people do. And so now this isn't every single woman, but basic gender roles suggest that women do not need to compete the same way that men need to compete. So their brains are not creative in that sense where they have to solve problems. And so being a creative person is problem solving. That's just a fact. So if you put these people in these positions and they haven't earned it, then what's going to happen? They're going to come up with bullshit. They're going to say like, hey, you know what? What has worked before? Well, I'll tell you what's worked before. We'll look at the last 30 years of Hollywood and we'll regurgitate all of this fucking nonsense and we'll get these cuck idiots to, latch onto us and, like Jason Reitman make these garbage tribute father flicks where they're completely all remember when stories. And you're like, okay, so, remember when is the absolute worst form of storytelling because it supposes that the only thing that's interesting is something that someone else did 35 years ago better than you did. And that is why you get, what's Hannah Gadsby or whatever this idiot comedian is.
Don't make me bring up videos of her. That's awful.
I mean, and there are many, I actually almost did a segment on my show about a collection of female comedians that are all terrible. And the reason I didn't do it is because I didn't want to pull clips because I didn't want to get flagged. But essentially, it's like hey, what are we going to joke about? Let's joke about men. Let's joke about our vaginas, right? Let's make obvious references to shit that we're even allowed to talk about. And they only talk about this bullshit stuff because they have nothing else going on. This is very sexist rant. but I 100% stand by it. I feel like nobody's saying this stuff. And, and you have a lot of these people who again, it's not everyone. I have known some very smart, talented women who are in creative roles and, high directorial positions and graphics and art direction and all that stuff. But
some of my best friends are women.
Exactly.
I think there are too many examples of women creating things to say that they're not creative. I do agree that if you get a creative position just because of an identity, that's a setup for the most uncreative material that you can get. And if you create a culture around creative endeavors that doesn't pay attention to actual creativity, then you create no incentive for that hard work creativity that you need. And so I think we're seeing a lot of evidence of that in current pop culture. So that's kind of, I think, where I more fall on that.
I think, I'd have to really hear the examples of all of the creative women. I mean, you can name
in fiction writing. I could go on for like days. So it's just, and if you go into other types of art, like textile art or like I said, there's just other types like.
Okay, that's fine. I'm not gonna. But I'm saying when it comes to comic books, film, video games, these have I don't see it. I haven't seen it. I don't feel like
it's fair
adding anything that's new.
I think one thing you might be noticing is the fact that with video games and comic books, you have visual media, which often skew, whether for whatever reason, it's very easy to see that men do tend to skew towards those. Like they say that like men are more visual creatures, so we would skew more towards being creative in the visual mediums. So that I think there's some.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. So like all of my references are visual based. All of your references are more reading based or yeah. So I think that's fine. I think that's fair. But as far as the thing is that books in the 21st century don't move culture the way movies and video games do. And so this idea that you're gonna have this like swath of women who are gonna like just march in there and be like, we're gonna change it to this now, and then they're fucking making Batgirl taking selfies on a rooftop. I'm like, all right, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest problem with their role in comics is that they can't write the characters for whatever reason. Like they have to write themselves, and I don't know what it is that they can't perceive.
And I think too, a lot of what's going on in books. I mean, it's like the fucking Nora Roberts, right? I mean, it's like if you have like these women who are writing romance novels, they're injecting themselves into what they imagine they want to have happening, and that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, to be fair though, like James Bond or other like male fantasies often have the guys writing themselves, but their fantasies are different. If you look at women's, if you look at women's romance fiction and then you look at like men's escapist fiction, there's a lot of observable patterns that map out pretty well to like gender, patterns.
I mean, writing male tropes doesn't mean that the writer is necessarily projecting. That's just the genre that they're writing in. But what we're talking about is that these women, and I think the big problem is not that they're women writing, it's that they're token hires. Honestly, like at the end of the day, it's because they were picked up for being activists, not for being competent writers. But the problem is that they can't write in the genre that they're hired to write in.
Well, yeah, like because you think about, like you were just saying, what was it, Twitless?
Yeah.
Like James Bond is a male fantasy. I don't need it written by a woman. I don't need Indiana Jones 5 written by a woman. All right, there's plenty of male fans. Like I don't need the next Batman movie or Avengers movie or Marvel flick that has a male audience after 75 years of having a male audience being written by a woman. That doesn't make any sense. It's like, and also, and I've actually noticed this in certain films. I used to be more of a professional editor. I worked for A&E History Channel. I was able to tell when a woman was editing whatever video we were using because they have different sensibilities. They hang on certain shots longer. They cut to certain shots for emotional impact in a different way. And so when you have a different sensibility about how to conduct the story, if that doesn't translate to a predominantly male audience, you're going to have a stinker in the theater. And I think that's why this fucking Eternals movie is just laughing stock. It's just like, well, you know, why again, like Well Red said, it's like you hired as some type of like, you know, not diversity hire, but I guess it would be a diversity hire, but like it's almost like tokenism. It's just like, oh, look, we got a female director in there. Like, shouldn't you guys like it? I mean, they even tried to pull that shit with the Wonder Woman movie that came out, right? They were like, oh, Patty Jenkins or whatever made this thing. But they even tried to get ahead of it and say, if you don't like this, it's because you're sexist. This was before the movie even fucking came out.
Has that become a marketing tool?
That's what I mean. It is. It's a huge marketing tool, you know, because they're, you know, they win either way. Either it fails and the world sucks, or it does well and it's because we finally got a woman in the role. It's just like, no, neither of those matter. A good story should be a good story. You get the person who's most competent to do the thing. You know, I don't want, you know what, like, what was like 80% of pilots are men, or what? I think it's maybe even higher. It's like, well, we got a whole bunch of women pilots in there because of diversity. It's just like, well, they landed the plane. Great. It's like, no, I'm sorry. You need to have hundreds of clocked hours before you get on a plane. It shouldn't matter whether you're a man or a woman. I think that's nuts.
So, yeah, I mean, I agree with the point that arbitrarily having them write it doesn't make any sense. Like, right, we don't need to just hire the first woman off the street to do Avengers or James Bond or whatever. But I guess as one counterpoint, there is one director who's a woman who actually does do pretty good action movies. Do you know Catherine Bigelow?
Well, yeah, but
Have
I
you
mean,
heard-
again, the exception is not the rule. Like you know, it's like
absolutely, yeah, I know, and that's I mean I guess that's the thing that people don't take away when you know, people have these kind of conversations and they generalize. Generalizing doesn't mean absolute, right? Like we're not
right.
defining mathematical equations here and stating laws. There's absolutely going to be somebody there who defies the norm. And here in 2008, you know, before wokeism really took over, she was making, you know, really decent action movies. Hurt Locker was pretty good. Zero Dark 30, Point Break, way back in '91. She was the director for that, I believe. So, yeah.
But it's like juggling Fabergé eggs, right? If you juggle Fabergé eggs and you suck at juggling and they all fall and hit the ground and they shatter and one doesn't, it doesn't mean that it's okay to juggle Fabergé eggs. It's like, no, it's a terrible idea. They're all going to shatter. Maybe one doesn't, but it doesn't mean that, you know, let's go out there and start fucking throwing these things around. I mean, it's stupid. And it's a fallacy. It's like one of these dumb arguments that people have to throw out there. Like, well, what about Catherine Bigelow? All right, great. You know, that's like the same argument with like comics are always political. What about Watchmen? Great. Okay, there's one. If all comics are political, name 10 comics that came out in 2004 that were political.
I like to believe that because art, you don't usually watch a piece of art on repeat because just because of like politics. You watch it because you enjoy it, and there's a certain type of meritocracy that therefore comes out of art. You know, like, because when you need escapism, when you need enjoyment, you don't just go, what's the thing that lines up entirely with all of my beliefs? You think about what's the most entertaining thing. Beliefs may have a part of that, but ultimately there's a sort of like barometer where you judge art based upon a certain criteria that you have. And so therefore, like I said, I think there's a type of meritocracy that art can reach. And so I don't care necessarily. When I first picked up comics, it took me years and years and years for me to even pay attention to who the names were on those, credits pages. I just picked up the story and I either liked what Spider-Man was doing that week or in that story, or I didn't. And when I picked up all the novels that I read, I either liked the story or I didn't. It was either entertaining or it wasn't. And I didn't care who wrote it. And what's really interesting is that in comics, when you just see the name of that person, you don't necessarily know who that person is. And so unless you come pre-knowing who they are. And so there's this really great chance for you to pick up a piece of media and just judge it on its own merits without identity being a part of it. And I really wish we could go back to some of that, because people have talked about how awesome Ann Nocenti's writing was, and she just, learned the ropes, learned how to do it. Because these crafts they're not necessarily magical things. Nicholas Spark picked up how to write a woman's romance novel, and they're women who pick up how to write superhero novels. It's not, or superhero stories. It's not impossible to learn.
Ayn Rand does great sci-fi.
She takes a while to get through, but there's some really great stuff. Yeah, like that's what I really wish we could get back to with the arts. It's like, hey, is this a good story? Like, is this an entertaining story? Is it something that moves you? And then who cares like what you look like when you slap your name on the credits page?
Could I ask you guys a question? Is this art?
Oh, geez. Why would you do this?
I think this woman should maybe write the next James Bond.
I have a nice rant answer for you if you want to know. No, that's not art.
This is
that's
the show to rant on.
That's total trash. The concept of art has been hijacked by the talentless in the last 10 years or so as an excuse to put anything on paper and try to sell it, mostly as a way of either coming up with a reason to not get good or transfer funds illegally. It's not art because art needs a certain amount of discipline, composition, and understanding of color palettes, and there's a lot that goes into being an artist. The idea that you can just put anything on paper or canvas or whatever it is and say like, well, it's the emotional impact it gives you is total fucking idiocy. And anyone who generally thinks that is a bad artist. I mean, they're not even an artist. It's an excuse that they tell themselves so that they can justify not getting good. It's like someone who plays a video game for money, plays it on easy, and then, when they say like, oh, people are getting mad at me when they say get good, noob. It's like, no, you should get good. Be a gamer. You're not a gamer right now. Okay. Right now, you're someone who's sitting there with your tits out and you're expecting to get super chat money because it's easy. Okay. And so this idea like, oh, anything is art. That's go fuck yourself. You suck a big fucking wad. You're wasting everyone's time. And it's that kind of thought process that gets garbage fucking like this installation art that is a waste of time. And honestly, it brings the entire art form down. So that when you do have people who do know what they're doing and they come out there and make something good, you're like, oh, well, I mean, is it really worth the money? I could buy this. And my kid could do that. It's a really stupid way to evaluate the definition of the word. My answer is no.
Okay. Short answer is no. I have mixed feelings. On the one hand, there's a part of me that really agrees with what Cameron was saying when we see something that's like really just disgusting and has like no effort or seemingly no effort, and it just crap like thrown on a wall. In some cases, literally feces. And it's it's art. And it's like no. On the other hand, I find it very difficult for me to paint where the line between art and not art is, because there are definitely pieces of art that deal in what we sometimes call liminal spaces or just borderline. It's ambiguous. Is this art? Is it not art? And some artists love to just like be ambiguous and to like push the boundary, push the line. It's like, should they not be allowed to do that? And it's like, of course not. Obviously, there's some people who clearly walk right across it, but part of art is in fact pushing boundaries and pushing back against what came before you, and sometimes it's a big mess. So I'm, like I said, I always feel conflicted when I'm having to face that question.
I'll tell you
Good
this though:
artist.
anyone who's actually an artist will tell anyone who's pretending to be an artist to go fuck themselves. And
artists
when
be
you're
allowed
in
to
it,
do
like,
this.
so I went to a School of Visual Arts, okay? And, you know, you'd always get that one guy in the class who would have a big empty canvas and he'd put a dot on the fucking thing and be like, represents like the existential crisis of the universe or some idiocy. And we would call them art fags. And it was like, oh, okay, it's an art fag, right? This is someone who thinks it most likely is way too much money. Their parents paid for them to be here. They don't have an idea in their head. You know, they think they're thinking outside the box. All of these terms were created specifically to allow these people to exist in the world. And that's it.
Did you ever read Daniel Clow's Art School Confidential?
Yeah, I actually had that book for a while.
That's a really, I like that, because like he's the same thing you're talking about, where it's like the different types of art students, and you know, there's some really interesting, yeah,
and I'm trying to think. They actually made a movie of that, right? Art School Confidential. I think they did make a movie about that.
I think you're right.
Yeah, and yeah, you always saw that. And some of the teachers were like that. The professors I had, it was like, you know, I painted triangles in the 80s. Like, it's like, okay, guy, whatever. You know, I don't. I mean, and here's the thing: you're always going to have. There are exceptions, just like Catherine Bigelow, right? You're always going to have your Jackson Pollocks. There's always going to be someone who did something new for the first time, and you know they understood color theory, so that when you do look at it, you do. If you understand what goes into it, you'd be like, okay, that actually is something. The problem is that stuff requires no discipline to recreate. So you have a lot of people out there, and I've been to these fucking shows, especially in Manhattan, where you go in there and it's just like, oh, it's abstract, and I painted this with my tits, and it's like, the fuck is this? This is crap, you know? And they, you know, they got a big fucking melon on their head, and they got some big stupid dress, and you know, they stick their hand out with their glove when they're talking to you, and it's just like, you're an idiot. You're a sycophantic moron. You know, there's no skill whatsoever, and you have that. It's almost like its own class of people, and essentially they use the ruse of being an artist as an excuse to just like not conform with, you know, what society is, so that they can, you know, continue to collect checks from their rich uncle.
Well, all that being said,
this conversation went places.
Yeah.
I got thoughts, everybody. I got feelings.
We were talking about Batman '89. Like, I was not prepared for this.
Are you prepared for this? Women do have their place in heroes.
Okay, it's getting past my bedtime.
So there you go, 1904, the origin of Batgirl.
You got to start somewhere.
Yep. Start small, dream big.
I'm getting tired. I gotta bounce.
Yeah, I might wrap up the stream. We've gone for 2 hours, and I think it was a pretty good show overall. No need to let it run dry. So thank you both, Twitless. Always.
I got 40 more minutes of rant in me. You should.
Oh, you want to go for another 40 minutes? You want to go for another 40 minutes? I got tons of Hannah Gatsby.
No. I should probably get back to my wife.
Yeah, Hannah Gatsby or the wife. I mean, you know, that's an obvious.
Oh, there's a hard
obvious choice. Yeah, exactly.
Oh God,
Camel, it was great having you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and I hope we can do it again sometime soon.
Again, let's do issues 4, 5, and 6.
Do we have to?
We could bring someone else on. Maybe it might be good to have another opinion. I don't know.
No. I'll come back. I was just being facetious. I was being artistic. Okay. That was art. I was being artistic.
Autistic.
But yeah, if there's any other mainstream stuff, you know, maybe we can talk further, and you can come back for something else too if you'd like. But yeah, so it was great having you. And this Sunday, I think we'll be doing another review. I've got things planned, and we'll have a few new guests coming on for that. So that'll be an indie book, something crowdfunded, something CG. So everybody look forward to that. Before I let you go, guys, I'll probably ask about your projects. Twitless, I know that yours is, as always, on print on demand. Omega Girl. You want to give a pitch while I bring up your link?
Sure. If you really were disgusted by what we talked about today with a stumbling and terrible attempt at classic superhero adventure stories, then as a palate cleanser, you should definitely check out The Adventures of Omega Girl, because I'm definitely channeling a lot of the classic superhero energy in that. But I think I do a better job than Batman '89. Of course, I think that's a very low bar, so maybe I shouldn't use that.
It's like, you like banana sundaes or you like poop? Wow. You're done eating poop. How about a banana sundae?
There we go. But I crammed 4 stories into 24 pages for this opening installment, and I've got more on the way. So it's
unfortunately, Indie Planet is having issues, so I can't actually show your book. Sorry about that.
You can show the Amazon link. I'll post it in chat.
Okay.
I used to use Indie Planet like 10 years ago.
Yeah, they're good.
They're good for, like, baby's first comic. Like, you only need to print one. They're like, oh, okay, it's all right. It's pretty good. It's good quality for what you have to pay.
You better scroll down because it's got your name there.
I don't care.
Okay.
Like it's in the comic. Like my name's in the comic.
Oh damn.
I've been doxxed. Yeah, as I've said before, if anyone tracks me down, they get a free comic and a cookie. So but yeah, check it out on Amazon if you want the Amazon Kindle version. If you check the Indie Planet link, you can get print on demand, I think, for like $3.99. So totally whatever you're interested in. And like I said, more stories will be on the way. Got more artwork coming even as we speak. So if you want some classic superhero adventures in a sci-fi utopia being assaulted by the forces of evil, then check out The Adventures of Omega Girl. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. And Camel Moon, how's your project coming along? Should I bring up your Indiegogo, or are you in the process of fulfilling?
Excellent. Well, huh? You bring it up. That's fine. I don't think anyone doesn't know who I am at this point. Well, that sounded conceited. That came out wrong, but yeah.
Everyone knows.
Everybody knows. Yeah, the camel. But yeah, I made a cartoon, Hail Salad, and then I made a comic. And comics, I finished drawing it, so that's a positive. Just about halfway done with colors. I think it's 40 pages and I'm 15 colors in. So but I'll be done with the halfway before Christmas. So I think by the time I'm done coloring it, and then get ready to print, we're probably looking at maybe mid-February. So yeah, that'll be good. Right now, we sold a lot of merch, right? So we sold a lot of the T-shirts and the standees and lunch boxes, all that fun stuff. All that's in. All 1,000 standees I had to order. We ordered, I think it was 150 T-shirts, 75 lunch boxes. There's probably 2,000 stickers. So all that shit's here. I have it in the other room. And so once the comic is printed, we're going to start mailing that stuff out. The only thing that's available currently is what the fuck is that video down there? I remember putting a video.
They've been adding ads on Indiegogo.
Oh, that's so lame. Anyway, so yeah, right now only the comic is available because I had to stop taking purchase orders because I had to fulfill. Because some of this stuff's coming from China, some of it's coming from England, so I had to put final purchase orders in. So, yeah. Anyway, that's looking good. If you go to the updates, so I think a little bit higher,
sure.
You can actually see some of this merch that I'm talking about, and these are some of the interior pages. So yeah, I'm doing everything myself. It's pencils, inks, colors. I'm going with a limited palette. I think the the original print palettes had like 36 colors. This is the stuff that like, Kirby would use. So it kind of helps evoke that feel of like a 60s comic, and, sort of like old school Filmation cartoon. And, I add some effects to it so that it kind of looks a little bit more like a cartoon. And also I like the idea of essentially pushing the medium in a direction that I haven't really seen it before. So that's why I try to, although it's a classic look, it has techniques that you can't do, or you couldn't do up until now. So like the prisms in the background and the way the lightning comes in and stuff is sort of unique to this and other things, or well, a lot of stuff that's in Comicsgate. So it's been fun. I'll probably, once this is fulfilled, I'll start the next campaign. I would say March of next year. And yeah, that's that.
Very nice. Yeah, pages look great. So looking forward to
It's a
seeing
lot of
the finished
fun,
product.
you feel like you live in the world, and I don't even see Cecil and Ethan and John. I mean, I see these characters, who they are. They all have voices in my head. So it's like, I know how they talk and how they interact. I think also the story is 40 pages. It's a prequel to the cartoon, but it's also very much its own 3-act structure. It's its own story. You're going to get you're not going to feel like you need to watch the cartoon or need to read the sequel. It's fully contained. And I think, especially now with, the way that some of the books in Comicsgate are coming out, where it's like, it's just a setup for what's about to come. Don't feel like that with this. It's like you're going to get a full story right off the bat. And hopefully, it'll do well enough that people will want a sequel, and not necessitate a sequel.
Very cool. Is there some subliminal messaging here that you're drawing Ethan and Fraga without pants? A bit of a fetish thing going on there. What do you think?
Well, so the
Subconsciously?
Ethan thing is just because he's a Spartan. So that was just simple.
Oh,
And then
does he wear underwear?
I mean, I'm not looking up. I don't know.
Use your imagination.
And then with Fraga, his tutu doubles as a top hat. He's popping out of a top hat. So it says, it's for the character. There's nothing. There's no fetish or anything.
Yeah, the character.
I'm not gay.
Okay.
If that's what you're saying.
No, not at all. Not at all. All right, cool. Well, it was great having you, and lots of fun hanging out and chatting. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you both back here again really soon. Until then, good night, everybody, and thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll see all of you again on Sunday. Take care, and goodbye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.